Good evening. It's Tuesday night. It's 5:45 p.m. and we are live again with the M5 show. My name's Smuggo.
Bar Humbug, and I'm Jim.
And the M5 goes officially live from now. First and foremost, just going to say a very good evening to my co-host Jim. How you doing, mate?
All good, brother. How are you, sir?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Kind of digesting and getting over that Villa defeat. I've got to be honest with you, I've not been a happy chappy all weekend, mate.
Yeah, no, I know how you feel, mate. It was felt like something like that was kind of in the works, if I'm being honest. And we've had a lot of conversations in the meanwhile. So hopefully the listeners who understand the show and know that we're not overly reactionary because we've both been to enough games, but and we're as positive as we are when it's right to be positive. But I think there's just if people are now few shows in and listen to us, they'll see that there's a couple of things that we've been earmarking that potentially may become a problem, and a couple of hens have come home to roost in the last 7 days for sure.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. And I know we've had quite a few discussions in our first couple of shows already in terms of what we could maybe potentially see as kind of hazards on the horizon. And it'd be good to kind of digest how you kind of felt how the Brentford game went, and naturally the Aston Villa defeat as well, because obviously I've got a good opinion as well in terms of both games of obviously what I see. But yeah, we'll get into it. Before we start, just want to say a warm welcome to everyone who's live. I just want to say as well, Jim, before we start, mate, last week, absolutely on fire was the show through YouTube. 1.4k views on Tuesday night alone, mate.
Amazing, yeah. And for a new show, obviously you've got an established community and everyone in the Arsenal fan base, we cherish, because whether we agree or disagree on where we're at, with the club, to have such a big listening and so many people kind of take the information in as we're such in our infancy is just incredible. So can't thank everyone enough for having us tune into whether it be their radios or X or YouTube, or whether on the way home or whatever. Just make sure everyone travels home safely, or maybe they're starting work somewhere else in another country. But yeah, mate, just amazing the following and the pace it's gathering. It's brilliant.
No, definitely. No, totally agree with you. And obviously, we are only at the start of our venture, and obviously, we are hoping that moving forwards, we'll continue to get new viewers onto the show, and obviously participating in our Ask Jim section as well. And we have got that later on as well. And just to remind everyone, in terms of that, Jim's obviously kindly put up a prize over the next 4 weeks that the winner of the Ask Jim question of the day will get put in a draw, and then we'll do that draw at the start of January. And the prize is a ticket to the Emirates to watch an Arsenal game alongside old Smuggsy and Jim themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. And it won't just be any old ticket in the stands, mate. It will be a bit of a special day out. So yeah, hopefully everybody fires their questions in. I think it's going to be 5 winners. We'll go into a live randomizer that we have, and Smuggsy will whip up all his incredibly eccentric tech and pull out a winner for us. So yeah, fingers crossed and good luck to everyone who competes, but got to be in it to win it, Smuggsy, haven't they?
You've got to be in it to win it, first and foremost. And what I would suggest as well, though, feel free, guys, to get yourself into the comments. If you've got a question, whack it in there. I am keeping my eyes open on it. So any questions will get kind of raised at the end of the show. And, yeah, look forward to, obviously, putting Jim in the spotlight once again with your questions.
Exactly. There we go.
Anyway, let's move forward. Let's go back to last Wednesday, mate. Obviously, Arsenal versus Brentford at the Emirates. A 7:30 kickoff, which is obviously a little bit earlier than most, obviously, midweek night games kick off due to television rights. Going into the game, mate, we was a little bit, I'd say, like on last Tuesday's show, a bit, I wouldn't say down or demotivated by any stretch of the imagination, but we was a bit disappointed in terms of how the Chelsea game panned out, especially with Casado being sent off and obviously them down to 10 men for quite a duration of that game. But we was naturally discussing, wasn't we, on last week's show as well, in terms of rotation being key, with obviously the volume of big games that we'd played over that last week in terms of Tottenham, Bayern Munich, and Chelsea. But then looking ahead to Brentford on the Wednesday, then a big clash at Villa Park on a Saturday. Was you happy with Mikel's lineup on the Wednesday in terms of what he went with?
Yeah, I mean, all in all, there was a couple of things. I was really happy to see Ben White come in. Anyone who listens to the show knows I'm a pretty solid stout for Ben White, and I think he was rightly the man of the match on the evening, which I'm sure we'll cover off soon. It was good to see Mosquera come in, and because we were continuing to rehab Saliba, and Timber was probably one player we definitely highlighted needed a rest. Obviously, later on in that game, just before half-time, Mosquera goes off injured, and as time passes by, that one looks like it's a bit more serious than we first thought. So, all the best to him and his recovery. Then he goes with a middle three that made sense as they played a lot of minutes in Odegaard's absence. So Odegaard, Zubimendi, and Rice kind of occupied the three, and then he kind of had to rotate the left-hand side with Trossard's injury, or again, he had a niggle. I was really, really excited to see Madueke come in. But, the aggravation continued for me with the persistence of Merino in the 9 or the false 9 and Gyökeres being on the bench. I felt like a home game, an opposition that I think we were going to have a significant amount of the possession with. And it was a great game for Gyökeres to kind of come in and play 45, 60 minutes and then be rotated out. And they'd have the option then, if we were really comfortable in the game, for Merino to come on for Rice. And even I think Jesus, if I remember rightly, was on the bench. No, he was. Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
So he could have come on for Gyökeres and had 30 minutes. And Merino could have gone into the midfield, or vice versa. And I must say, Smugs, right, this is a bit of one of the things I really want to talk to you about this evening is Mikel's in-game management. Because if there is a criticism of him over the 6 years, I think he is still learning and plying his trade. Where someone like Pep or Wenger, Pep, Wenger, Ferguson, Mourinho, all these kind of established managers over the course of time just seem to have, you need reps to kind of get this stuff right. It has felt like something to me that he has struggled with. And I was thinking, all right, well, it's his first job. But then I'd kind of collared that he's managed the Arsenal for 300 games now. That's a fucking a big wallop of time on the touchline, And anyway, look, we'll get onto it when we kind of analyse the two as a collective and sort of speak on it further. But, the game kind of unfolded how he wanted it to. Merino did play in the 9, 10 minutes pass. A really, really nicely worked move on the right-hand side between Madueke and Ben White with that lovely arching run. I've talked to you about it so much, haven't I? That curved run of Ben White is kind of almost like his signature move. And he gets the ball in the pocket with a lovely bit of skill from Madueke, drifts the ball in with the right amount of pace into the midfield, into the middle of the box. And it's a very accomplished headed finish from Merino, which again is his kind of signature move. But beyond that, as the game evolved, mate, I thought Merino had a fairly poor evening. He was very slow in reaction to a Calafiori shot where he didn't get to the ball and kind of almost imitated that there should be a penalty claim, which was washed away. There was one from a Rice shot down to the bottom left hand of Kelleher, which kind of pops back out to him. He gets his feet sort of stuck and jumbled and looks very unlike the instincts of a number 9 to how to react to that, and kind of pops it wide from 5 or 6 yards. And really, what is most noticeable for me in these games where he's picking Merino, I think, is this tendency where I've just got a slight aggravation with Mikel, mate, where I think that he gets a little bit timid or concerned with conceding goals. And the comfort blanket for him is that Merino can drop into the midfield and give them an extra option in the duel, in the aerial. And he pops in and just kind of convolutes the midfield so we stop other teams playing. And it's sometimes it's against lesser teams like Brentford, and we'll kind of analyse these games, fairly kind of side by side or agnostic, right? But against lesser teams like Brentford, I think we can kind of get by with a solid performance and win them 2-0 at home. When you go away to an Aston Villa, who have won 13 of their last 15 games and are flying, and have got an unbeaten record at home for about 20 odd games, I think I read. Yeah, he was a passenger, mate, on Saturday, Marino. I cannot genuinely remember a single thing that he did in the 9. And when I look at that game, and I've been and watched the Arsenal 350 times, so I feel like I've got a fairly good understanding of football, played an all right standard. Yeah, I watched that game, and I think I just look at the profile of Konsa and Torres, 6'2", 6'4", very similar to the way in which we played against Liverpool. I know Gyökeres played in that game, but like we drift. What we were trying to do against Liverpool was, I know we had no Saka that day, but we tried to put the balls into the box and played the ball in the air. And I would look at the profile of both those centre halves in Konsa and Torres and say, if this is going to be a day out with an aerial duel, like we've had it off here, because if they come and hit us hard and fast through the middle, the way Eze's been playing, and Gyökeres is going to run us on the shoulder, which is going to bring the left winger and Saka into the game, this is going to be a bit of a tough afternoon for us, because Matson's a fullback who wants to get forward. He actually did a really good job against Saka, but we didn't. I felt like we played into all of our Aston Villa's strengths. And yeah, and I said to you, didn't I, when we were chatting the other day, I said, look, I know he's probably played a good bucket full of games, Marino, now in the 9, maybe 15, maybe 20 games in the 9 he's played. I know Gyökeres last season, Havertz was out for a large part of it, plus this year in the last 4 to 6 weeks. I think he's only scored 3 goals on the ground. Great goal against Real Madrid. You mentioned the goal against Leicester, I think, was it, in the second half?
Yeah.
And he scored one other on the carpet. I can see the goal, I can't place it. But, actually, in 15 to 20 odd games, goals on the carpet, right? 3 is not a brilliant return in 15 to 20 games. And it shows that it is we constantly feel, to me, like we take attacking elements out of our game to shore up our defensive game. And that is a recipe for us struggling to win major honours. Like, we'll always be there and always be in the fight and competing, but you've got to go and beat these teams, like, to get to the points tally that gets you over the line. Like, it's a very fine margin, but it's the finest of most difficult margins to go from bridesmaid to bride. Yeah. And there needs to be something click or something change in that ilk that shows that we're okay to take a bit more risk. We don't mind leaving ourselves exposed in the 4-on-4. Like, we've got enough speed, enough recovery in our team to handle that and let the game open up a little bit, which will help us in turn when we recounter and put our players who can play in possession. And look, I know that's a fairly long-winded, like 8-10 minutes analysis of it, but other than that, the Brentford game was fine. Rice had a pretty solid game. Zubimendi done his work well. Timber did quite well when he came on at centre half for Mascara. I thought Madueke was electric in the first half. Really, really good. I thought when he went off for Saka, it was a bit of a shame. I think Madueke actually deserved to probably play the full game. I thought he created a chance out of nothing for himself with 3 guys around him. Drop shoulder, got a shot away. Just kind of got it a bit out the heel and kind of got it a bit straight at Kelleher. But if he gets that a metre either side of him, it's a phenomenal individual goal. And he was obviously very well involved in the second goal. I thought when Saka come on again, he failed to really grab me with his performance. He took his goal okay, but it was a big hand from Kelleher and he got lucky and it pushed it into the goal. Missed an open goal, Saka, from 5 yards when Calafiori has a shot on target. And he's struggled, I think, since he's come back as well, which we've talked about in previous shows. So look, all in all, it's 3 points. It's a clean sheet. It was solid enough. Oh, mate, as well, completely forgot to mention this. 1-0 at 20 minutes. As Raya just made save of the season off that Sharda header, because that was a joke.
Oh, it was an incredible save, weren't it? That had goal all over it. Do you know what I mean? And like we've seen this with Raya before, haven't we? In games that he can perform at the actual worldies. Like we look at the one from Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa, funnily enough, weren't it? Was it last season? In the 2-0 win. He's got that moment, ain't he? The capability to pull off like the saves that you actually don't expect the keeper to save.
Definitely, yeah. Anyway, mate, so on the Brentford game, in a nutshell, I was really happy with the result. It was a solid enough performance, but again, I didn't feel like any of the cracks that I was a bit concerned about were getting covered up, and we went into Villa from there. But did you see the Brentford game any different to me, mate? Because I know we spoke afterwards, and you were happy enough with the result, but there was still a little bit of hesitation in it. I remember chatting to you in a week.
I was happy with it. To be honest, I think at that point with the games thick and fast, I was just happy to get the 3 points. I don't think it was overly convincing whatsoever. I don't think Brentford really put us under a lot of pressure either, if I'm being totally honest. So it obviously wasn't a comfortable 2-0 because we didn't score the second till the 91st minute. And when it's always 1-0, there's always a chance Brentford can get back in the game. So I think from my perception, the performance, I didn't think overly concerned me because I kind of considered the background in terms of the week before that they had. I personally would have liked seen a little bit more rotation. Personally, I want to get onto the topic of Norgard. It's a big frustration for me at the moment. I don't get it whatsoever. You bring a player into a club who's got Premier League experience, and we haven't seen him at all in the space of the last 2 weeks. And we've had a lot of games, a lot of big games. I do not understand why he didn't come on Saturday to see out the last 10 minutes. Personally, I'm not saying I would have took off Odegaard at that point because I think we needed someone to be in that role, but I'd have definitely considered taking off Submendi at that point, just for the fact that he had played a lot of minutes and he was tiring. That midfield was tiring. You can't tell me that Christian Norgard, who's played for Brentford, who's played loads of Premier League games, can't come on for a 10-15 minute spell and see out a game for Arsenal Football Club.
No, I categorically agree. All I've heard around the Norgard signing is it's a smart business. It's a good piece. It's a smart signing. It's a good piece of business. Because all of a sudden, Arsenal, like the way that football is dressed now in modern day media or modern day social media, is we've all turned into fucking economists and accountants, and and we're actually monitoring the Arsenal balance sheet. It's a nonsense. So. The price tag isn't just everything. It's reflective of the individual's age, their value, and then there's other elements to it, right? As to why maybe it was a good deal or it wasn't a good deal. He occupies a squad seat, which will not be a homegrown player, so it's an overseas player's position within the squad taken out. He will still be on 60 to 80,000 pound a week. So it's a £4 million club commitment per year. So far, we've paid this guy maybe £1 million. He hasn't kicked a ball for us, right? And it's an opportunity where we could have looked at another market opportunity and used this as genuine, valuable time to have brought maybe someone off the continent or someone through the academy or someone younger. Look at somebody like a Kobe Mainu, for instance, right?
Yeah.
He might have cost as a transfer fee, but he's got 8 years on his side, comparative to Norgard. He's played international football with Rice, so they've got an understanding together in a double pivot. So he could have filled in for Zubimendi quite easily there, but I think he also wants to advance up the pitch as an 8. I mean, I'm only bringing him up as an example, Smug. So I think he genuinely wanted to leave United in the summer. His game time was coming under constant scrutiny, and for whatever reason, Amorim hasn't used him at all at United, So he's kind of a good alternative candidate. What would he have cost? 35, 40 million quid, maybe, something like that. So you might have lost more money up front, but you'd have amortized that over, if you want me to be an economist, you'd have amortized that over 3-4 years anyway in regards to a payment structure. We pay Brentford all of Norgard's money up front. So the outlay for the 25-26 balance sheet would have been probably pretty symmetrical, right? Okay, would he have gone on 80 grand a week? I don't know his wages, but I bet it's not a million miles away, from what kind of dough he's on. So, and you could have bedded him into a team. He is a homegrown player, right? He is English. He is of age. And he could have then said, yeah, I can rotate in and out and X, Y, and Z, and probably come in and put us under, put the two midfielders under, with a fresh impetus of life, a significant amount of strain in training by trying hard, because he would want to put himself in the shop window to be able to partner Rice in the World Cup. Because Rice has got to play. Rice is obviously going to be the number one choice there, and Mainu has probably been the sacrificial lamb in the England setup to open the door to Elliot Anderson, because it was Mainu's shirt a year ago. So, look, I've just thought of that off the top of my head with somebody with better football knowledge as an alternative to a Norgard. But I don't understand it, Smugs. I really don't. Norgard came in to replace Jorginho, I guess, right? Zubimendi came in to replace Thomas Partey, or vice versa, or either way as you will. The differentiator is Zubimendi is playing every minute of every game and has earned his shirt. But Jorginho featured in all games where we were trying to shut stuff down. He captained the side in the Champions League, when we had kind of dead rubbers or easier games or home games, and in League Cup matches. Norgard was a Premier League captain, and he don't get a kick, mate. So I don't really understand what's happened in the scouting process to now. I know he had a bit of a niggly injury, but they never told us what it was at the start. And he looked, to be fair, Smugs, don't know if you watched them. They've just come back to me. The pre-season tour that we went to in Asia, he looked quite solid in those games. He didn't look out of place or anything like that. So I don't know what it is, mate. I honestly, but again, you've just highlighted something that I brought up in my kind of 10-minute rant, which was I fear for the bloke with his in-game management, because, everyone keeps saying that. My counter or debating argument with the fans about why is everyone getting on top of Arsenal? Why? We're top of the league, we're top of the Champions League, we're the best team in the land. We're X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but you have to understand trends, right? And the way in which things are working. And at the moment, things are subtly working against us, and we are in downtrend because we've dropped points quite a lot in the last few games. We dropped points at Sunderland, we dropped points at Chelsea, we dropped points at the weekend at Villa, and all we've had in between that is a Brentford win, right? So, there's an argument to say that we're in a bit of a downtrend, and we need to snap out of it. And in game, and then people kind of rely on no one's had more injuries than us, blah, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if you rotate players, rest players properly, actually trust your squad, you are going to reduce the chance of injuries, right? It's kind of common sense. So, and there are elements of that where Arteta has to feel the blame for it. He started Saliba, mate, against Liverpool. He come off after 3 minutes after getting blown up in the warm-up. What the fuck was that? Who does that? So... Yeah. And now we're sitting there, and Rice is nursing a calf. It's a muscle injury, right? But he's played through it. I think he's rested for Wednesday because he's not trained today. Timber is the most obvious next one that's going to go. He had a year out with a serious ACL injury. He plays every game. Ben White has sat on the bench for about 20 games before he got a rest. You telling me that when we're 2-0 up and we're cruising in those run of clean sheets that Ben White can't do a job for half an hour? Look at the standard he's played in the last 2 games. He was our best player against Brentford by a mile. I'd argue that he was amongst the 2 players that deserved their wages on Saturday. So he can clearly come in and do a job. I know he had to play anyway because Timber had to fill in at centre half. But Mosquera, mate, he's now down for 10 weeks. He's never had an injury in his career. Saliba was days, apparently. I thought he was going to play against Villa. I definitely thought he was going to play against Bruges. He's still not training. What's gone on there? Because players don't come back quickly either, mate. They're gone for ages. And we still haven't seen Gyökeres play more than 25 minutes. Well, he played 45 minutes against Villa, but he'd been back ages. Now it's like he's got a broken finger. Well, I don't know if it's fashion or not, but these players play with these strapped up wrists all the time. So they must be. Someone needs to teach them how to open doors or something, because I don't know how often these guys get wrist or finger injuries. But yeah, mate, look, it is frustrating because we're kind of making a bit of a rod for our own back, mate. Can you remember the last time that you saw a really double naughty tackle on one of our players which crocked them? Because I can't remember the last time it was not a workload or a muscle-related injury that has had someone go out.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I see trends of what Mikel does, and it's run over the years. Do you know what I mean? But this is your squad now. Do you know what I mean? This is not no one else's squad. This is your squad. This is your set of players. Do you know what I mean? Like, you would have obviously given it the authorization that you wanted Norgard in the club as such. But I still feel that with certain players, we go down this situation and road where we just don't see them whatsoever. And I'll tell you what the interesting one for you that you mentioned is when you mentioned Jorginho. And if Jorginho was in the club now, Jorginho would have played football over the last 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like 100%, Jorginho would have played. He would have started against Brentford 100%. Smuggsy would have come out of that team. Jorginho would have started against Brentford. Now on Saturday, I'll be honest, I'm looking back to the Sunderland game as well. I'm not just looking at obviously Saturday's game, but I'm looking back to the Sunderland game, mate. And I just feel, right, where you could tell on Saturday that the midfield was out on its feet. And why would it not be? Like, you've literally overrun Declan Rice, who puts absolute heart and sweat and blood and tears and everything into his performances game in, game out. You got Subamendi, who's just come into the league. Do you know what I mean? So he's still adapting. Of course, he's still adapting. Do you know what I mean? He's adapting to like having to play 3 Premier League games in a week, which is well, let's be honest, there's a much more higher intensity than what it is playing in the Liga. And I'm looking at Saturday, and I'm looking at the last 10 minutes, and Calafiori had to come off, by the way. Like, he was absolutely on his arse, mate. He was on his arse, and Skelly did need to come on. 100% Skelly needed to come on. But we needed someone in that midfield, mate. We needed someone just to put some energy back into that midfield in the last 10 minutes. And I'd argue we potentially needed that again at Sunderland as well. Do you know what I mean? But we just don't seem to touch the centre midfield whatsoever. And I do not know, for love or money, right, why Norgard wasn't brought in against Aston Villa for that last 10, 15
But
minutes.
mate, they just an alternative to that. Let me just give you an alternative. If he doesn't fancy Norgard, he spent 30 million on Marino, who by the way is a fucking central midfielder. So he could drop Rice back into the 6, which was the position he joined the club in, play Marino in the 8, and then he can either, he can bring on another attacking outlet if he wants, or he can just go a bit more defensive if he wants to and add Norgard to it, because he doesn't have to bring, he brought Gyökeres on at half time and taken Marino out of the game, and then he's cut him because he's gone, because he's subbed him off. So it probably wasn't the right sub in that instance because, we wanted to see Gyökeres, but he could have, he's iced himself there because he's now playing Marino as a 9. So he's not got him as a central midfield option to come into the 6 or 8, which are 2 positions he's played as well. And he could, and he had a good game there against Forest when Subamendi and Marino playing the double pivot. They know each other well. We now know that Subamendi still hasn't learned English because he's doing all of his interviews in Spanish. So he could have helped communicate with him. So he's taken his, in essence, his third choice central midfielder out the game because he's refusing to play his number 9.
I do look at, like, obviously there was no other subs really because he had made all the subs, but then I sit there and think, well, you could see how the game was going, right, after about 70 minutes. Like, did he really necessarily needed to take? And I know this is easy to say than done, but did he really need to take Saka off from Madueke at that point? I'm not sure he did, mate, and it's not because obviously Madueke come on and didn't really do nothing, and the shot he had at the end for me was pretty pathetic attempt. I'm being totally honest, and he'd been better running that out to the corner flag or whatever he needed to do to kind of bypass some time. But I just felt that Madueke Saka substitution stopped him from protecting the team in the last 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Because it limited him to one last sub. And you could tell after 70 minutes that the midfield was dead. You could tell that Calafiori was getting absolutely rinsed. And they were playing that ball down the side of him time and time again, just ripping him to pieces. And obviously once Mallon come on, it just changed the kind of dynamics, especially as he was tracking over to that side. But I just felt that the Madueke substitution, I don't think it needed to happen. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it necessarily needed to happen. I don't think Saka was one of them players that was flagging whatsoever. I'm not saying that he was having a great game, but I felt that there was areas in that team that needed to be rectified in that last 10, 15 minutes. And the centre midfield was definitely one of them. Now, like you said, I don't see any kind of future at the moment for Norgard within this team, because I think if there was any, he would have participated over the last 2 weeks. He would have definitely participated against his club, Brentford, at home. I still think that's a glaring area that actually, if you had played him in that game and either rested Subimendi and maybe bring him on for 20 minutes at the end, do you know what I mean, see out the game, or you could have done other stuff, do you know what I mean? You could have rested Declan, you could have put Eze in that role, whatever you want to do, yeah, right? But I just feel that actually, I feel that the selection process in terms of the Brentford game and the Aston Villa game, and in terms of the way the Brentford game was picked, but then how it panned out against Aston Villa, and then the substitutions, I felt that Mikel missed a trick, if I'm being totally honest. I think he missed a massive trick in terms of being able to rest one of them centre midfielders against Brentford. And I feel that it come to bite us in the arse in that last 20 minutes, because let's be honest, in that first 15 minutes of the second half, or 10 minutes until Trossard scored, there was only one team in it. And once we equalised, at that point, I was thinking, do you know what? There's only one team that's going to go on and win this game, because we literally pinned them back for like 10, 15 minutes. But as soon as we scored, and it reminded me of the Chelsea game, we dropped off.
Yeah.
We dropped off. Right. And I tiredness and fatigue is obviously a massive thing as part of that. But in both games, we have massively dropped off. And even the Sunderland game, mate, once we got the second goal against them, we dropped off.
Yeah, and then look, as soon as they scored, look, we created, like we went banging on the intensity again, and had a chance to nick it right in the last minute. And I don't for the life of me, against Sunderland, I think I said it to you at the time, they only had one route to scoring against us, and it was loading the box and using their physicality. And we played so deep, and we invited it on. And I think it was a foul from Zubimendi which created the opportunity, right? But if I said to you at the time, there's no nous or understanding that that if you've got the ball and you're in the opposition's half, it's kind of tough for them to score a goal from 50 or 60 yards out. So why not play the game in their half? It's as much of a defensive outlet as it is an attacking outlet, and it kind of is a bit of a common sensey thing for me, and I don't understand it, and I think all the games that we've dropped points in this year, and don't get me wrong, we've lost 2 games, we've drawn a handful, but they're kind of. You kind of see it coming, like it's not completely, we're not conceding goals against the run of play and getting cooked in the 3-on-3. It's like we're inviting the pressure on, and it's a law of averages situation. The only game we've conceded a goal kind of against the run of play was the breakaway goal City scored against us, which was just a bit of genius from Haaland. But you kind of expect that. He's the best striker, or one of 2 best strikers on the planet. So, those things can happen. But we don't, every other time, we've invited the pressure on. We did it against Chelsea. We did it in the last 5 minutes against Sunderland. Last 10 minutes against Sunderland, mate, we were 2-1 up. You're absolutely right. We just let them come after us. Then Trossard scores the equaliser after us basically battering them for 10 minutes at half time. And then the minute he scores the equaliser, they just turn, they simmer the engine down or go down the gears. And we just, it's like, no, just do this for another 10 minutes. Once you get to 2-1 or something like that, or even go and get to 3-1, they'll just turn the engine off because they're like, oh, we're out of this game, right? Like, we'll go into retreat mode ourselves. If you always leave it where it's a 1-goal advantage, they will always think they've got a sniff and there's something to play for. Like, remember Leeds, mate, where we just battered them, or Forest. Like, Forest didn't do anything after 50 minutes because we were 2-3-0 up after 50 minutes. Leeds did nothing after 50 minutes because we was 3-0 up. Like, that's how you go and basically get another team to turn their engine off as well, because they're like, all right, we're playing for nothing. And you just see the clock down.
One of my other frustrations is, and obviously you brought it up already, like in terms of Gyökeres, and I'm just going to go back to Gyökeres' last game against Burnley, which obviously me and you were having a discussion about via text during that game, in terms of that was his best half of football, and then he gets injured. So this is what really frustrates me with the social media fan, that absolutely everyone's forgot about that performance. In terms of social media, and actually now it's Gyökeres can't do this. He's not capable of doing it into the league. But wait a minute, the last game we see him play for that 45 minutes was the best half of football he played. He absolutely was the best player by a country mile on that pitch on that day, and he went off injured. Like, it's yet again, I'm scratching my brain in terms of, okay, fair enough, yeah, right, he got injured, Marino come in. Do you know what I mean? I totally understand. We're waiting for Gyökeres to get back to full fitness. But to see him sit on the bench at Chelsea, then at Brentford, and then we go to Aston Villa after Marino yet again has played like so many minutes within that last 2 weeks and not get a start. Yet again, I'm scratching my brain. I'm listening to the social media fan sitting there going, yeah, he's not good enough, this and that. But I'm like, he's not being given the opportunity, if I were being totally honest with you. His last game that he got selected for, that he started for Arsenal Football Club, was his best performance. Okay, it was his absolute best performance. We need to start looking at as well, right, in terms of what actual supply is he getting? Because I'm watching games, right, and this is even prior to, obviously, him getting injured. And I don't really can remember, and you might be able to rectify me on this, but I don't sit there and remember many chances where I think, Jesus, Gyökeres has had about 4 or 5 chances and should have scored one. I'm scratching my head to think about 2 chances. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, our players have got to do a lot more in terms of what they're doing in terms of the supply that they're giving in terms of our forwards. And I'll be honest, I sat there and thought, Havertz, actually, when Havertz played, he got, I remember the Man United game in the FA Cup where he missed tons of chances, and I've seen it time and time again. So it's not that they're not capable of doing it, because I've seen them do it. You know what I mean? I've seen our strikers miss sitter after sitter. But I'm looking at this guy, right? Is it Gyökeres? Is he not making the right runs, or is it that actually our team have not worked him out whatsoever? I don't know. I'm interested to see what you think now, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I haven't seen him have many chances since he's been at Arsenal whatsoever. What's he scored? 5-6 goals. So he's not got a bad, in my opinion, he's not got a bad return. When you start looking at strikers that have been brought in from other teams, do you know what I mean? We look at Benjamin Sesko, we look at kind of Leon Delap, and we look at Isak. Do you know what I mean? There's 3 players alone that are not cutting up whatsoever. Or is it becoming really hard for a Premier League striker actually to score goals if you're not Erling Haaland?
I mean, look, one thing I'll take you back to about that point about defending as well, and the job that Gyökeres does that no one gives any kudos for, right? The 6 games before, including the Burnley game that he goes off injured, prior to that, Gyökeres started every single one of those games and played the vast majority of all the minutes in them, right? We conceded 2 goals in the 6 games. We scored 1 goal. We conceded 1 goal against Newcastle, and we conceded 1 goal against City, In the 6 games that Marino has just started in the 9, we've conceded 6 goals. So we've conceded 4 more goals.
Yeah.
So you know, and we only kept a clean sheet against Brentford. So actually, the most recent data that you can grab is that defensively we're a better team with Gyökeres in it. Yeah, because and that's important actually, because I think a lot of the stuff that he doesn't get any credit for in both boxes. You know, the amount of work he does in the high press, how he suffocates the two centre halves, the opportunities he gives Rice, which he's a demon at, because they're trying to play the ball quickly to win the duel and turn the ball over in midfield. It happens a lot more regularly, and actually, that's a really interesting stat, because that's a goal difference of 4. Yeah. And we haven't. Aston Villa's the hardest of the 6 games that Mourinho's had to play. We conceded against Spurs, which is a stupid goal to concede. Yeah, but that was Spurs at home, and they were in a bit of a bad moment. Conceded 2 against Villa, 2 against Sunderland. And there was one against Chelsea, and there's your 6. But and there was another 1-1 as well. What was the other draw, Smugs? 1-1. Who else we draw 1-1 with?
Sunderland and Chelsea.
Chelsea, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so yeah, don't get me wrong. He's had a hatful of tough games, but still. So, look, I don't think there has been the only clear-cut chance I can think of there being 2 that Gyökeres has had that he's not converted. There was one where the ball drops to him in the Leeds game, and he snatches at it on the turn when he could have taken a shot and just passed the ball into the net. Yeah, and he probably should have scored. He definitely should have hit the target. And the other one was where Zubimendi played that disgusting pass and flicked the ball through to him, and he batters both the defenders out of the way, and he gets there on the run against Atletico Madrid, and he tries to lob the keeper, and Oblak just gets a hand to it. So he gets a shot away on target in that circumstance. Maybe he scores there. And then the other one would probably be the away game in the Champions League with the diving header, where he's kind of, that's a genuine half chance where he just gets the ball past the post, and he should maybe do better. But other than that, I actually think the chances that have been created for him, he's generally converted them. That are like where he's in goal scoring positions, and he is in the right places normally to score the goals. I think he comes on and scores against Chelsea if Timber don't get in the way. It's like on his head, it's a free header, the keeper's in no man's land, you just get that on target, it's a goal. So his instincts as a striker, from the small selection of information that we've got, show me that he will score goals if he gets service. Whether it's Eze, whether it's Ødegaard, whether it's Saka or Madueke on the right, and probably more predominantly, we've now realised that Trossard's the first choice left winger if he starts.
Yeah,
they're not finding ways still to put him into the positions where he can run in behind. But others are prospering. Someone like Saka has had to wait a couple of years to get way more time in the one-on-one with his fullback. It's just this year he's not been that good with it. Like in years gone by where he's had a scenario where he's one-on-one with his fullback, he's incredibly clinical and he's a top player. He's just not. He's just not really clicked yet. Someone like Trossard's really benefiting from, and Martinelli actually. Both of them have got back in the goals properly since Gyökeres has been in the team. You think how dry we were from the left last year with no number 9, because we have to be really one-dimensional with Mourinho in the 9, because we're feeding balls into aerial areas where he's clinical. So no, I don't think that we've created a really good plethora of chances for Gyökeres yet, and we can turn around. Like, remember that little period last year where people got on Kai's back and they're like, "Oh, he should have scored against Man United. He had that one on the half volley and he put it over the bar, and he seems to miss chances." And I remember the one where he went through on goal against Liverpool, and it's a straight at keeper, but Saka taps it in to kind of get away with that one. But there is not a string load of chances where you can just turn around and say, this guy's muck. He just they give him 3 chances a game and he don't convert. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. The person who's been most creative for Yoker has been fucking Gabriel. He's centre half.
And that says it all, really, don't it? Like, in terms of like the actually how many chances are we naturally creating, like, within the team? Like, even when you look at Brentford, there wasn't naturally that many chances, was there? So we know we're playing up against low blocks. We know we're coming up against different styles and all that. And this is where I think Kai Havertz will come into his own a little bit when he comes back. And I'm not. There will be games he will start up there. I know that for a fact. But as I've said before, I think there's such an ability to play Kai Havertz with Gyökeres, and I think it will support us in certain games. And I look at this Aston Villa game, and I actually think we could have done with a Kai Havertz in that game. Because, do you know what I mean? Like, he puts himself about, he'll get himself in there, and do you know what? He will get. Can you imagine him getting up close with Gyökeres? Like, them 2 centre backs are going to find it totally different, because at the moment you watch Gyökeres and it's like he's having to fight like at least 2 centre backs. Do you know what I mean? On his own, and it is a tough job. Don't get me wrong, it is a tough job. The number 9 role in the Premier League is probably one of the toughest roles, if not the toughest, in football, because you are expected to do so much more than what's appreciated. Like, we used to always say that the defensive midfielder would be that player that you don't really get, does all the unsung work. Where I actually think the number 9 now is that role, who does a lot of the unsung work. And I think it's quite interesting. You said Trossard is definitely profited from this year, and got to give him his dibs again. Absolute massive impact when he come on. Do you know what I mean? We looked at a different team, but there were 2 big substitutions for me, and that's what really disappointed me. Was we got Gyökeres and Trossard on. We done that to them in the first 10 minutes of the second half. And then, like you said, it was like we got the goal and it was just like, we can breathe now. And then it felt to me a little bit, mate, that actually we sat there and thought, do you know what? We'll take the draw here today. After 55, 6 minutes, it felt to me that they were thinking, we'll take the draw.
And that comes back to, Smugs, my biggest fear about whether this guy can go and win us a major honour. Because a COVID FA Cup with a squad that he absolutely decimated and didn't really want any of the players. I mean, I think Saka started on the bench that day, and he's the only remaining player that's come into that squad, and everyone else has gone, right? So it's his team, and these guys have got major honours under their belts. Like, Eze's won an FA Cup, he won the Community Shield that started this year. Rice has led West Ham to Conference Leagues. Zubimendi won the Euros in the summer of 24. Like, these players have gone on and won major honours. Like, they've got experience in other teams of being able to win. But this negative kind of fallback to kind of getting the handbrake back on is something that major honour winning managers are not known for. And either the narrative around football is changing and you and I are just a bit old school, or there's a flaw in the way in which he manages. And I don't know which. I genuinely don't know which one of those 2 it is, but it's definitely one of them.
I think there's definitely a flaw in terms of how he uses his squad. I'm adamant of that, and I've been a big Mikel Arteta fan. I still am. I'm not going to say I'm not a big Mikel Arteta fan, because I am. And I think the job that he's done has been superb. But, and there is a but, I do feel that there's been a massive flaw over the years where. And I always felt it before, and I think I'm right, that I felt he didn't use the bench before because it was a bit of a dig at the board. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't trust none of these. But like you said, this is his squad now.
On that point, though, Smugs, City are 2 points behind us, and we still have to go to the Etihad. So that is technically a home advantage. So I don't know whether that's worth a point or whether it's worth 3 to them or whether we can go there and win. We've done all right there before. Villa are 3 points behind us. City have conceded 16 goals and Villa have conceded 15. We've only conceded 9. So, that the feel for me there is still, even with the money that's been spent on the forward players, and with also the adaptation of the brilliance of the players that have come through the academy, whether it be a Saka, the very cost-effective signings of Martinelli, Trossard and Odegaard, which kind of only cost 60 million quid for the 3 players, which is madness when you think about their valuations today, and so on. Yeah, we don't create enough and we don't score enough goals. But that has to come from coaching, surely. Like it must do. It must come from the way in which they're set up, or they're told to play, or the way in which they operate on the field of play. Because it does show that someone like a Guardiola, working under the old school narrative, very similar to the one that the ethos of what Wenger created, which was, I will win the game by scoring more goals than you. They've won a game 4-3 recently. I think they beat someone 5-2 or whatever. They just go and batter teams for 90 minutes. And if they concede 1 or 2 on the break when you've already got 4 chalked up on the board, they don't really care. It's like, yeah, well, we're 4-1 up and the game finished 4-3. Like, yeah, okay, we shouldn't have conceded those goals. How do we look at it? But mate, we shipped injury time goals twice in the last 4 games. We shipped an injury 95th minute goal against Sunderland, and we shipped a 95th minute goal against Villa. And we shouldn't allow teams even the opportunity to be in our penalty area in the 95th minute.
No, Sorry, I was just going to say, obviously on Saturday, this be fair, it was a glaring error, weren't it, from Hincapié? There was let's be honest, there weren't much pressure in terms of what he did. It's one of them moments, weren't it, where you sat there and you thought, shit. And I did, mate. I'll be honest, when he did what he did, I don't know why I said to myself, I thought, shit. Do you know what I mean? Because you've just put so much pressure on us, and obviously from that resulting throw-in, they scored the goal, didn't they? And do you know what? I'm going to go back to a comment you made earlier on. And I actually believe this year, right, that the most important player in our squad is Gabriel. Like, you look at last season, mate, Gabriel gets injured. It's not just in defence, is it? It's in terms of the set pieces. It's in terms of the corners. It's in terms of what he brings to that team as well. I think the spirit that he brings into that team. I think the leadership he brings into that team. I think actually that the motivation that he brings into that team just by being him. And there's no denial that both times that he's got injured, we've dropped off. We have dropped off. I know the Sunderland game he was in part of that, but I just think that was more down to us dropping off the gas. But I look at an Arsenal team without Gabriel to an Arsenal team with Gabriel, and it's chalk and cheese, mate. It's chalk and cheese. Like, I think the geezer is so invaluable to us, and I hope we can get him back this side of Christmas, if I'm being totally honest. I think Saliba will do a job, obviously, against Wolves. Why shouldn't he be able to do a job as long as he's fit? I look at the Everton game, and as I said to you earlier on, I sit there and listen to everyone going, well, we've played at Anfield now. We played at Stamford Bridge. We've played at Villa Park. We've played Man City at home. Do you know what I mean? We played at St James's Park. We've got rid of all the old games, mate. That Everton game is going to be as tough as it comes. Like, we're going to Everton at 8:00 on a Saturday night with 60,000 Scousers all pissed out of their head. Yeah, right. They're going to make a bloody wall of noise. It's going to be another Sunderland game. It's going to be exactly like Sunderland. Do you know what I mean? But we need to get the 3 points against Everton. But I don't buy this narrative that we played our hardest games. Going away in the Premier League is tough. Every ground's tough. Do you know what I mean? Okay, there might be 1 or 2 grounds at the moment you think, yeah, we should win there, like Burnley. Do you know what I mean? We'll go to Wolves at the moment. You'd expect us to win that. But you look at Liverpool at Ellen Road, yeah, right, with their fan base. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not an easy game away from home. So, yeah, we have played some big clubs away from home. But we've still got another 8 or 9 really tough away games. Do you know what I mean? Like Bournemouth, just after Christmas. We know what happened there last year. Do you know what I mean? Like, fixtures going into the new year, like Aston Villa and Brighton at home. We didn't win both them games at home last year. So, like, all these games are hard. Do you know what I mean? You can't rest on your laurels, and you certainly can't sit there and think, yeah, we played a lot of our hardest games at the moment. That is not the way to think in my eyes. Like, the thing is that we just got to take one game at a time. We need to get back into winning ways. Obviously, tomorrow's going to be a bit of a rotation. I still expect us to win in Brugge, if I'm being totally honest. If not, sure. But Saturday, get a comprehensive win at Wolves. Do you know what I mean? We've got to get a win at Wolves and be comprehensive because they're not that good this year. And anything but a comprehensive win will only bring more sparks from obviously rival fan bases, media, etc., etc. But in my eyes, mate, I don't know. Like I'm going to say again, we need Gabriel back in that team.
And just on that, because it's a really interesting one, and I'm just going to ask you a question here, and it's a bit of a rhetorical question, but and a cat amongst the pigeons. But under Emery, Emery was the one who kind of within his time in Arsenal scouted Saliba and brought Saliba to the club. He's a Saliba player. Yeah, he found him in League Two, and then Ligue 1, and then then we managed to sign him ahead of Spurs. He also found Guendouzi, who's I know he didn't really. The masses at Arsenal didn't really take to him, but he's gone on and had a pretty good career afterwards. We signed Gabriel 6 months after Emery left, and he was 22 years old, and he was playing for Lille in France. Arteta came straight from being Guardiola's assistant manager, but was specialising on one-on-one player treatment within the squad. So I can't imagine he was doing a significant amount of technical information on other leagues or player recruitment. Do you think Gabriel actually is an Arteta signing, or because we hear all these rumours now that the scouting teams work on these players for like 12 to 18 months before they even buy them and collect data? Is he another player actually that Emery identified, and he wasn't, Arteta's guy, but he was one of the first players he bought in his first summer transfer window after taking us over. So, because Saliba's been such a success, and no one knew about this kid, and then Gabriel, we signed this Brazilian big lump from Lille or whatever, and look, I just throw it out there. I just wonder, I just ponder, but. He's a massive loss for us because we built a team around Nicola Jova who has been so effective in the way in which we've scored goals, and we've had little glimpses of where we've been really good in open play, like the game against Spurs. We were just glorious to watch that day, but we ain't built on that and gone and played that football again since. It's been quite lethargic and flat, and I actually think that as the season go on, I think I mentioned this to you when we were chatting a day or two ago, that I think as you get into like a halfway stage in a season, as we're approaching it, I think we've become quite easy to work out, and because we look quite one-dimensional. Because we're really, really heavily coached, and you only got to see Mikel on the touchline to kind of see how he always wants people in particular areas of the pitch, or their positioning, or the way in which they occupy space, or what they're supposed to be doing. And there's no invention or ingenuity or flair. There's not the player that Eze was at Crystal Palace, mate. He has not resembled that. Really, the only game he's resembled that in was where he had a true free role, was the Spurs game, and he scored a hat-trick. He does not look like the same player in any other games, really.
No, I do think with Eze a little bit. Look, you know me, I'm a massive Eze fan. I do think there's been a big adapt. He's had to adapt to Arsenal, because I watch Palace games, and do you know what I mean? Like, surprisingly, like when you think of Palace in the past, when they had Elise, Zaha, and Eze, you would expect a lot more teams to play a bit more of a lower block against them. But they didn't, did they? Yeah. Because they were more confident that with what the tools they got, they would beat Palace. And I think that suited the likes of Elise, Eze, and Zaha, who were absolutely fantastic. You're probably looking at three of their best ever players that play for the club. Well, I think he's had to adapt a bit. Now, I look at Saturday, for example, with Eze, and he didn't cover himself in glory. You have to be honest, you know what I mean? Especially the goal. Like, I know Calafiori's been dragged out of position, but he still needs to track that runner, and he needs to do a lot better. But I also felt that we didn't play to his strengths either. Do you know what I mean? In that first half, and actually, if Saka had not been offside yet, right, Eze would have actually scored in that first half. which I think everyone's kind of forgotten about because there was nothing else that happened for him in that first half.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for Eze, isn't it? Like he's come into a team that Odegaard's not there. He's played in the attacking midfield role. He had an incredible moment against Tottenham with the hat-trick. He got the winner against Palace. I thought he was pretty poor that day, to be frankly honest here. But he's had some incredible moments, like the assist for Man City for Martinelli. This talk about the world-class assist against Bayern Munich for Martinelli again. Has shown his worth. And yet again, you listen to the social media fan, and they're slating him. You're like, actually, Eze's done a lot more than a lot of other players, in my opinion, this season to influence games and to impact games.
He had a really solid game against Forest where he got the assist for Gyökeres' goal. And that was a brilliant assist from the left wing as well.
I'd arguably say, mate, he's been more effective than Saka.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd arguably say he's been more effective than Saka this year. Do you know what I mean? And do you know what? I'm happy that we're top of the league and Saka's not playing well, because usually in the past year, right, we needed Saka to play out of his skin. Do you know what I mean? But this Saka this season is a totally different Saka to the Saka we've seen in past seasons. And I'm hoping over the next few weeks, with a continuity of the team and we get the centre backs back, that we can get to see the best side of Saka. But when people sit there and say that actually Eze is a waste of money, Eze is this, Eze is that, I think Eze has done pretty well coming into this team and doing what he's done. Yeah, it's not totally there yet. But if you had watched him at Palace, he was like this at Palace as well. He'd have his games. But what I can tell you about Eze, right, is, and as he proved against Tottenham, he has his world-class moments. He will determine games. He will trigger games. He will be a maverick, a match winner. He will be that player. But my concern for him at the moment is that Trossard's playing really, really well, and he rightly deserves that left wing spot. And I just don't think that Arteta's going to go any other way than Odegaard, which then makes me think, how is Eze going to be accommodated into that team moving forward?
Well, because what they should do is pick the right games where they can have the rotation in the side and rest the right players, and you don't actually need to play, like Wolves, for instance. You don't need to play Zubimendi and Rice. Like, one of them can sit in the 6, and Eze and Odegaard can both play in the 8s, because that's a home game that Wolves have just got trolloped by United 4-1 at home, you know? And United are hardly covering themselves in glory this year. Don't get me wrong, they're better than they were last year, but they're not a force to be reckoned with, and they're going to stuck 4 on them. So why do you need to play Zubimendi and Rice in that game at home against Wolves? Go with Eze and Odegaard, and then have a front 3 of Trossard, Martinelli, Madueke on the left, and Saka on the right, and Gyökeres, right? And go and just batter them 6-0. Do you know what I mean? That is just so abundantly clear to me that then Eze can play left side, Odegaard can play right side, the two of them can play right. Cool. If we get into a slot or we come under a bit of pressure, Eze could push up to the left. You could use your left winger. It could go off. Rice can come in, or whatever. But it's a perfect opportunity to rotate one of those two midfielders who cover the most amount of turf in a game and have played pretty much every single minute of every game. Zubimendi and Rice do not have to play every game together, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, so there's an opportunity there. He can rotate with the left-hand side, and he can also be an impact player, you know, and Odegaard's another player who can come into left mid. What are you going to do when Havertz comes back? Where's he going to play?
Yeah, exactly. Do you see that potentially, like, talking like this year, right? Because we have seen Mikel set up Eze and Odegaard against West Ham at home, which obviously Odegaard got injured pretty early on doors, didn't he? So then Zubimendi come on. But do you potentially see Zubimendi starting tomorrow night with Rice sitting out, and then Rice potentially sitting in that role on Saturday with Odegaard and Eze sitting in front of him?
Well, I'd like to. I don't even think Zubimendi or Rice should play tomorrow, and one of them potentially can even be rotated. We've got to play 7 games in December, Smugs. Like, you know, we've got 3 games in a week, Christmas week. They don't. Neither both of them have to play. Tomorrow's a bit of a dead rubber. Like, it is already announced this week by UEFA that we're through to the knockouts. So neither of them need to play tomorrow. Yeah, you can play Norgard. You could play tomorrow if you really want to, and you want to keep getting minutes in Odegaard. You could play Norgard, Nwaneri, Odegaard, or you could play Norgard, Marino, Odegaard, right? And then then you've got Madueke as an option on the right, or Madueke could play left, Nwaneri could play right, and Saka could be rested, and you could give Gyökeres a half just to try and hopefully get his goal and keep the minutes flowing in. Gabriel Jesus can come into the team, right? So, you might as well play Calafiori tomorrow because he can't play Saturday because he's suspended. So that gives you one option there. You got Lewis Skelly, then you play Hincapi in the centre half, and then you've got White who can play right back, and Kepa comes in goal, and then you give Timber another 4 days rest, and then you can rest White against Wolves. Maybe I don't know when is Saliba coming back. I mean, this whole days thing is nuts to me. So you've got that as an option, but why not heavily rotate? Mate, fucking Dalman can play right wing tomorrow. Like, let him play. Yeah. It's a no-brainer game. Let him play. It doesn't matter if we lose. We're in the knockouts. And just to make that point, Smugs, right, about the only manager who's really adopted the 4-3-3 in recent times who has been flawlessly successful is Pep, right? He has never played with two six-minded midfielders in a three. It has been on David Silva and KDB. Then it's like David Silva goes out and it's Bernardo Silva. He goes out. Reinders is now in the team with Foden in the other eight. I mean, Foden is a forward by all accounts, but he's now playing in the KDB role. It is always two more attacking biased players. And in the current version of the game, they have to do their defensive duties. It is what retired Mesut Ozil earlier than it should have. Yeah, because he didn't have the dual element to his game. He definitely had the kilometres in his legs, but he didn't go and put his foot in the tackle, which kind of cut his career short. And KDB did. But no other team that goes and batters teams or goes to win major honours or says, you come and beat us, doesn't play with two attack-minded eights. It plays with one sitting in. Because the other thing is, Smugs, like, if you've built and got a fantastic back eight, why do you have to protect them so much?
Well, no, in my eyes, we shouldn't. With the back, especially the back six that we've got. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you start looking at, you got Raya in the back five, and you got, let's say the back seven, Subamendi and Rice. Like,
that's what I'm saying. One of Subamendi and Rice in a game where you're going to dominate possession, dominate chance creation, and dominate territory. Why does Subamendi and Rice actually both have to play? When we were invincible, which every fucking idiot seems to want to compare this squad to, when we had to go and win games, he brought Edu in because he had that kind of Yoga Benito kind of defense cutting ability and could score goals. So Gilberto dropped out. And now Edu come in with Vieira, and he just goes one in, and he sits one up, moves him up 5 yards. So other managers do this. Like a game against Wolves, it is mental to me that both Rice and Zubimendi start the game. And if anything, it actually determines quite abundantly clearly the narrative that Arteta manages this team in, which is a handbrake-based model. And he comes under a bit of scrutiny with it in press conferences, and he gets quite uptight about it and shunts it away, and then the media, they don't stay on with it, and they look for their next story. And the old saying of today's news is tomorrow's chit paper happens, and it doesn't carry on. But it hasn't changed since the start of the season when we were like nicking games 1-0 or playing for clean sheets. Our style of football has not evolved. It hasn't evolved from last year. All that keeps happening is there is a narrative around we have to keep plugging in more attacking players, which means we come under more pressure. And this year, the window had a very strong attack bias to it. Like, the year before last, we had Kai come in. Now, mate, if you look at us as an attacking unit, you've got Trossard, Martinelli, Madueke, Gyökeres, Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus. If you actually think of a club who's got 3 number 9 options from full international starting players. I know. Gab Jesus has not been in the Brazil setup for a little while because of injuries or whatever. But he's a full Brazilian international. He's won the Premier League title 4 times. Then you've got Kai, who's like the recognised striker for Germany, and has been very good at Arsenal. And Gyökeres is, well, until he signed for us, was the most lethal marksman in Europe, and was we did a whole bloody video about following him around. We followed him on his day to the Ballon d'Or Awards about how well he did at Sporting, but we can't create chances from here. And they nick 60 million quid for him. So, and what he wants to do is go and play a 29-year-old, 28 million quid central midfielder at number 9, and has come out and said, this thing is what really got me in the week, mate, as to why I'm a little uptight at the moment. I still see multiple situations throughout the season where even if Jesus, Havertz and Gyökeres are fit, like where Marino works in the 9. And that, for me, is not because of his goal-scoring ability. It's because he can settle into midfield and congest the opposition and doesn't allow them to score.
Do you think that potentially that comment as well, like, I just think with Arteta, right, there's always a motive. Do you think that comment as well is that actually he foresees that actually Mikel Merino in centre midfield is not the answer? And do you think that's...
Well then, mate, why has he spent 30 million quid on him and 10 million quid on Norgard, and not gone and found another alternative? Yeah, because he spent 50 million quid on Partey, he spent 60 million quid on Zubimendi, 105 on Rice, and you're telling me, and 12 million quid on Jorginho, right? And you're telling me in 5 years we've only settled on 2 people that can play central midfield in a game that has any meaning to it.
I'm just looking from a perspective. I'm just playing a bit of devil's advocate here.
Why didn't you, mate? Let me give you an alternative, because I gave you Mainu earlier. Yeah. Why didn't he re-sign Xhaka for 12 million quid then?
Well,
because he's gone to Sunderland, then he's had it off.
But is there as such here, right? He's not bringing Norgard through. And look, I've seen this situation happen before. Is it yet again? Is it not, I won't say a dig, but is it something to aim at the board? I need another centre midfielder in January. I need someone who can come in.
Mate, he spent £1 billion. £1 billion.
But can you see what I'm saying? Mikel Merino, he's talking as a number 9, not as a centre midfielder. Norgard's not playing football. What like we look at Odegaard and Eze, they're one player basically.
But mate, he hasn't made any money in the transfer window, Smugs. It ain't even whether or not Stan and Josh will keep pumping dough in. You've got to balance the books as well. Not made profit on a single player. Yeah, since Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, we've not sold anyone for profit, mate.
Do you think though that there could be that piece that he wants another centre midfielder in January?
Maybe.
I'm just looking at he's not playing.
Why not? It's a casino strategy. Yeah, just double down. If your chips are flying off, just fuck it. Just buy more chips. Yeah, I can't. Honestly, I can't fathom it. I cannot.
I just look at this Norgard situation, and I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Do you know what I mean?
What he keeps turning around and saying is, though, there's loads of games to go. Yeah, and he's not wrong. There's kind of 35, 40 games to go. Yeah. So
depending on how successfully well we do in all the cups, do you know what I mean? Like we've got a big cup game, we got a big cup game against Crystal Palace 2 days before Christmas. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then we look at if we win that game, we're going to have 2 League Cup semi-finals, and we see what happened there last year in between all the Champions League games that are going to happen. We're going to Milan, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of games, do you know what I mean? We've got Portsmouth away, we win that, get into the 4th round. Hopefully we do get into the 4th round, because I forgot what the 4th round looks like after the last couple of years, do you know what I mean? But like, there's a lot of games, isn't there? And when you look at it, that he's not playing Norgard whatsoever, he's talking to Mikel Merino as being his number 9 option, to be picked number 9. And I'm looking at it then and thinking, well, you haven't got many midfield options, mate, whatsoever. Like, you're not going to play Skelly there at the moment whatsoever, because if you had, you would have done. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, all you got there is Zubimendi and Rice.
Yeah.
And that's the realistic thing. That is what he's got, is Zubimendi and Rice, and that's it.
But mate, so that is going to be where you've either got to do one of 2 things. You need to take a leap of faith, yeah, or one of the 2 of them is going to have a catastrophic injury. Yeah, that is it. because that is what has happened to every single one of our players in the last 3 years who have got injured. Kai Havertz missed 6 months, mate, because of a hamstring workload injury. He had never had that injury before, right? And that subsequently then brought him back early, and now he's had another knee injury. Injuries breed injuries. That is what happens. That is how the human body works. Yeah, from playing a sport at a very high level, I have managed it myself. So it is exactly what happened. And Havertz, at the point in when he had his first injury at Arsenal, had played something like 6,500 minutes in 18 months. So he was averaging 4,200 minutes a season. Yeah, most footballers who play top flight football, outfield players, average between 2,800 and 3,100 minutes. He was playing a season and a half a season for Arsenal. You would literally put together a repertoire as to where Havertz was going to break down. He's doing the same thing with Timber now. He's done it with Gabriel. Now Gabriel's getting all these muscle-based injuries. He's done it with Saliba this season, mate. He brought him on against Liverpool. He started the game, went off. He has not been right since, and now he's injured again. Rice is the next one, and Timber's the next two to go. Mark my words. Yeah, literally.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? With Rice, we need to manage him, especially with these midweek games coming up for me.
And these are players as well, mate, yeah? You've got to think about them as human beings. These are players who are in World Cup years. Realistically, if you're an elite level professional, if you're lucky, you might get to play in 2 or 3 World Cups. You go and crock someone and make them sit out a World Cup, mate. They'll never work the same for you again, you know? It's like me being your boss, yeah, and your boys having their first proper Christmas where they write a letter to Santa, yeah, and then I make you work on Christmas Day. Proper Ebenezer Scrooge you, and you don't see the present unwrapping, and you don't see the Christmas turkey getting cut up. And I still expect you to come in on the 1st of January and proper put 100% in. And you sit there with resentment for me because I made you miss that Christmas. That is the feeling. This is where the human element of all these things has to be considered. Yeah, these are not robots. They're human beings with emotions as well. Yeah, and all of these people have got an eye on the World Cup. It is a potential outlet as to why Saka is playing within himself. Odegaard will 100% start doing. He's been injured 3 times already this season. Yeah. And if you watch the Aston Villa goal, because everyone's putting all the footage on it, I've seen it on social media, he thinks about dangling his foot in that tackle when Buendia scores, and he don't want it. Yeah, anyone normally will just put their body in the way and they will kick the ball against him, or they'll get fouled and it's a draw. It's done. But he does not want to dangle his foot in there. These guys are thinking about June and July next year. It is 100% happening. So the ones who haven't got to go and play World Cup football don't really shed a toss. Look at someone like Raya. He throws his body at everything. He's Spain's number 2. He needs Simone to get injured for him to get a World Cup. He might travel with a squad, but does he get a medal if Spain win? I don't know. I don't know if there's the same criteria.
He will get a medal.
Well, there you go then, right? Okay, fine. But he can kind of go there 75% or whatever. A bit different for a goalkeeper or whatever. Yeah. But, you know, it's... Gyökeres, he'll run himself into the ground because the chances that Sweden have got to qualifying for the World Cup's nominal. So, you know, it's different for each player, mate, you know? So
no, it totally is. I'm just in the ball camp now that actually I think there needs to be a review in terms of like what our options are moving forward. And as we say, it's good that Declan Rice is going to be hopefully sitting out this game. Do you know what I mean on Wednesday? But like you look at the
you've got loads of people, you've got loads of players you can play there, mate. But you've got you the way you're thinking about it with Rice, and you've led this conversation very with much of a Norgard focus, is because you have been drilled by the coach that he wants 2 defence-minded central midfielders in the midfield. When you've got Nwaneri, Eze, Odegaard, Havertz, Dauman, like loads of attack-minded, flair-based players that are all actually naturally central midfield players. Yeah, but no one's thinking about sticking them in there because we don't play with 1 and 2. We play with 2 and 1.
But there's the other thing, isn't there? Nwaneri, do you know what I mean? Like we'll probably see him tomorrow. But do you think that he potentially could go out and loan in January? Because
No, absolutely not. We can't keep people fit. Yeah, so I'm like, we've got issues at left back now because Lewis Skelly had an amazing 6 months when he came in, which he probably did purely on adrenaline. When we were only really chasing the Champions League, we were a bit out of the Premier League. Now it matters. He's playing a little bit scarce, and he's considering himself. Why'd you let Kieran Tierney go out to Celtic? He's been mustard since he's gone and played every 3 days. And he scored the winner that got Scotland into the World Cup. So, there's another player that we've completely mismanaged at Arsenal, Kieran Tierney. And many used to think he was our best left back. So he could have been an option. What have we ended up, mate, spending £1 billion, and at Villa away we've got a 15-year-old kid centre half on the bench as our only centre half in Marley Salmon. He ain't ready to play Premier League football, mate. It's not playing Max in the right wing at 15 is very different to bringing him a 15-year-old kid at centre half. Yeah, going up against proper aggressive attackers. It's totally different.
It's quite interesting.
Just the profile and the athleticism of an individual and where they are in their genetic growth. Yeah, there are very few centre halves who come through at 18 years old. I can only think of a couple. Yeah, like Tony Adams. The greats are the only ones that have done it. Tony Adams, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry. Yeah, who can stand out and go and put themselves in that situation, and they play normally next to an extremely accomplished centre half. Like when they've come into that situation, where what are you going to do? You're going to stick Marley in centre half with Hincapi, who can't talk English, and say, "Do us a job, kiddo." You're going to send him out to the wolves, mate. So
yeah, well, this is the interesting thing for Saturday, isn't it? Hopefully, Saliba's back now. In my opinion, Saturday, don't know what you think about it, and I've said this on last week's show. I'd actually play Timber left back and Ben White right back on Saturday if Saliba and Hincapi are fit. I just think that actually that like I'm still confused, right? How we've never seen that ever again. Like I get that totally. Timber went to right back when Ben was injured and done such a good job. But I look at Saturday and I think actually Ben don't deserve to be dropped whatsoever. So if Saliba comes back and actually we haven't got a left back, I would actually revert Timber back to left back on Saturday and obviously keep Skelly on the bench. That's my personal.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I'd play Miles because Saturday is an opportunity at home in front of an evening crowd to go and put 6 on Wolves and properly annihilate them. They are at the moment the worst team in the league, with all due respect. Yeah, and we're playing them at home, and we need a statement win. And Miles can just fold into midfield and help. And because I want to play Eze and Odegaard in the 2-8s, yeah. So Miles can fold into midfield and double up in the 6 with either Zubimendi and Rice, yeah. And then you've got Hincapi and if Timber's fit,
so you leave Ben on the bench or Timber?
No, I'd play Ben because he's better going forward, yeah. And let Timber come on and actually bed himself back in if he's coming back from a niggle, yeah. Let him come on for Ben for 30 minutes, yeah. If Saliba's fit, he can play. And he'll play with Hincapi as the 2 centre halves, and they should have more than enough, yeah, to be able to deal with any maybe counter or threat that Wolves have, and then we should load on them and go and put them to the slaughter from the off as well. Because if you go 2 or 3-0 up after 30, 35 minutes, the game's done, yeah. So it doesn't matter if they get a breakaway goal or whatever. You just regroup and go again and go. Saturday is a perfect opportunity for us to go and score 5 or 6 goals in a game. And if we go and win that game 1 or 2-0, you know exactly where we're at, and we're not there, as in regards to genuinely taking this title by the neck. Because I don't know how United away from home can go and so easily score 4 against this lot and should have scored more. And then we let them come to us and we just want to roll over in first gear and beat them 1 or 2-0.
I think the piece for me, mate, is that actually, do you know what I mean? We talk about the Everton game next week being an 8 o'clock kickoff as well, yeah? So we've got 2 8 o'clock kickoffs, and actually we talk about the atmosphere as well. Now, this should be the exact same for us, do you know what I mean? That actually, because it's an 8 o'clock game, we're all in the pubs beforehand, getting on the old drink here, right? Getting on the old piss up, do you know what I mean? Like, that is, but Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I want for that atmosphere. Like, we talk about it being at Everton, we talk about it being at Sunderland. Do you know what I mean? That's the way we need to be on Saturday night. Do you know what I mean? We need to play our part as well. What I don't want, and look, we've seen it a lot of times before, that we're playing the bottom team and people think, oh, do you know what? I can't really be bothered. Do you know what I mean? And just sit there. And as that, we need to make sure that that atmosphere is electric in there Saturday night. Let the players feed off that. Do you know what I mean? And I hate the thought of thinking like, yeah, we'll go to Sunderland, you know what you're going to get. We'll go to Everton, you know what you get. We need to make sure that we deliver that same kind of atmosphere that we did, like against Tottenham, mate. That atmosphere was fantastic, do you know what I mean? But obviously, it was 4-1 up, it was going to be. But we need to deliver that kind of atmosphere. It's a fucking night game. It's a Saturday night. It's 8 p.m, do you know what I mean? Like, play your part as well.
100%. Like, you know, they've set a tone now in the Bayern and Spurs games at home, where they've done a phenomenal amount of work in regards to creating an atmosphere, whether it be with the brilliant pyrotechnics or the tifosos or whatever they do within Red Action to go and get the fans right up for it. But every single home game has to feel like that atmosphere and the theatre now, so that we can win every single home game. Because if we win every single home game, we've got a phenomenal chance of winning this league. And then because you can carry that momentum into your away ties, and the 3,500, 4,000 away fans that go away from the Arsenal are just monumental, mate. I've sat amongst them, I've sat with them, like, you know, so like they're brilliant. And they were really good from the off, to be fair, against Villa, but they get flattened out by the performances, Smugs. So when you go and put an aura of electricity on the pitch, everyone sings for it. So that's why the Spurs atmosphere was so good. You know, they started off as they wanted to in the first half against Villa, and we were just poor. So you flatten them out. Like, you know, it's not always just about the crowd having to lift you up. Like, you've got to lift them up as well. And it's got to be,
And I was just about to say, I think, like, obviously the way you said earlier on about like the Odegaard, I think that is key on Saturday. I think getting both out there, do you know what I mean, from the get go. I think you're bang on there, do you know what I mean? And with Rice sitting in that number 6 role, do you know what I mean? So Mendy can have a bit of a break. Like, actually, he'll do him good, because we haven't got a midweek game next week, so that will get him enough time to recuperate and get him ready for the Everton game, which is going to be a massive game for us. But it is the game, isn't it? That actually, if you're gonna do it, you do it against them. There's no point doing it against Wolves and then at West Ham and then not doing it against Wolves. You know what I mean? Like, I actually want to see Eze and Odegaard in them 2 roles on Saturday, sitting behind that defensive midfield. And as you said, I want to see Gulchrist up top, because I think this is the kind of game to get him the confidence. Do you know what I mean? To get him bullying their defenders, hopefully get a goal or 2. And like, you got Saka one side, Trossard the other potentially. We should be good for a comprehensive performance and a comprehensive result. But I think I will be a bit disappointed if we got there Saturday and actually it was Submendi and Rice, because I think we need to see a different style of game against them. And like you said, a relentless one.
The week later, all the points you just made are completely valid. And Rice and Zubimendi should play against Everton, and that will be a tougher game. And they're in a good moment. Moyes makes it very difficult to break down. Arteta should know him well. But like that Everton team have come to us, we've gone to them, and they could bore us out of the city, you know? Like, so that is going to be a much more difficult game. But Wolves at home, like, come on, you know? Like, if you can't, honestly, if you can't go and set yourself up, a team that have got 2 points in 15 games, and you can't take the handbrake off and go and set yourself up and just go and try and annihilate them, like, honestly, like, what are we up to, mate? I mean, again, with the utmost respect to Wolves, they are just in a terrible. Like, they're almost guaranteed to be down. It's almost incredibly difficult for them to get out of this. They need 38 points from 23 games. They've got 2 from 15. Like, I don't even. I can't even fathom how we couldn't just load that pitch up with attack-minded players and go and use it as an opportunity to go and, like, trounce them. And you go into that next week where you've got a League Cup quarter-final against Palace at home. Then you've got Everton, mate. Then we've got to have Villa back at our place. And what better momentum to go into that off the back of 3 wins in a row and say, right, our turn now. I'm going to bash you up here, to cancel out that day at Villa Park,
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll move on because we have got over time, so we are going to go into the Ask Jim section. So I've got a couple of questions, obviously, from the chat already. So I know Andy was on there, and he's obviously raised questions. So his question was, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Consider it my question. Does Arteta need someone to question his decision making regarding players? Sometimes it seems it's needed once or twice and never occurs.
I don't know in what reference he means that, whether he means in player, like in-game management with players, or does he mean by transfers? I think from a transfer perspective,
I think it's in-game. I think it's more probably in-game rotation.
Yeah. From a transfer perspective, that was obviously done by the board this year because Berta was a board appointment, and Berta came in and brought in a lot of players that he wanted to bring in, and we're seeing that now. I think yes, absolutely, Andy. Great question. In-game management, I think Gabriel Ensé would probably be the kind of person who would challenge him. He seems like that kind of individual. He's got that kind of Southern American ethos around him. But I do think Albert's a bit of a follower, and kind of teach say, teacher do, and does what he's told. So yeah, I think so. I think one thing I'd credit Arteta with is he is his own biggest critic, and I can imagine him going back and watching the videos and just scrutinising everything that he did, the players did, etc., etc. I don't know the man, so I don't know how stubborn he is to think, no, I was right, like they should carry on doing what I tell them to do, or if he is looking at it and thinking, I've missed a bit of a trick here. There's a bit of a collection of data that's kind of coming along here that when we kind of fall back into our formation and off the ball and we get a bit negative and we drop in 5 yards, we are conceding goals and dropping points. So it's a great question. I think it's something we're just going to have to see unfold. And the ultimate version of that question is going to come at the end of May. And if we've got a couple of major honours under our belt, he did do the right thing. And if he goes trophyless this year, I don't think that he will manage the side next year. And if he does, you understand everything about this football club. And unfortunately, it is that just being in and around the argument is good enough, which is not the Kroenke way, because with all their other sports teams, they win everything. So let's see. Yeah. But good question.
Charles asked another question. He put... Sorry, let me read. Great to meet up, guys. Gooner since 98. This side, Anfield away, and Unai Emery coach team again. Explain me why Arteta is failing at the same question in the exam again. Someone's not learning, eh?
Yeah, look, I agree, Charles. To a certain extent, Emery has got Arteta's record against Emery, which will annoy him, has been appalling. I think, I think he's only beaten him 1 in 10 games or something. And he's only drawn a small collective, and we've lost quite a lot of them. So, this Arsenal squad has evolved massively since Unai left it, and only Saliba is remaining from Unai's players. So we won't know this Arsenal team that well. But obviously, one thing that was really noticeable on the game against Emery is that he is able to coach his players with a heavy workload, and they still look like they're full of running at the end of the game. And we looked absolutely dead on our feet across the pitch, come Saturday morning, sorry. And that was the most notable thing. They just had another gear. And the Anfield away one, we've been over this so many times. We went there in a really good moment. You look at all the points they've dropped this season. We probably give them too much respect. It was early on in the season. A moment of magic from Zlosly. I don't know. I see Paul Scholes' remarks, which kind of quite pertinent in regards to your question this week, saying, they've played City at home, given too much respect, didn't win. They've gone Anfield away, they didn't go and put a marker down. They've gone Villa away, didn't go put a marker down. They played against Chelsea for 60 minutes, had an opportunity to beat them. They didn't take it. You know, teams that win Premier League titles get it done in big games as well as continue to accumulate points. And historically, the funny thing is with the media, how the narrative changes so rapidly, is that Arteta's record against what was deemed, in abbreviated commas, the Big Six has been brilliant. But this year, it hasn't, you know, so far. And everyone keeps saying the games we've played, the places we're 15 games through the season. So it's, by law of averages, everyone's had a pretty good chance of playing everyone so far anyway, Smugs. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like we're the only team that have had tough games. Like, a lot of people have had tough games. And I think actually this weekend is really integral for us to try and hopefully get a handle on the league again, because we play Wolves at home, which we should win, and City have got to go Palace away. And after that, City have got 3 quite nice fixtures, and we've got Everton, Bournemouth, Villa. So, you know, we could get to Christmas here when everyone was saying it'd be lovely if we're 10 points clear. We could be 3 points behind. So we've really got to get our heels in now and find a way of getting it done. And, you know, time stops for no man. So we will soon see.
Cool. The next question from Austin. After the performance against Villa, what would you say we missed most at the game, and whereabouts could we improve? Obviously, now we do have injuries setting us back.
Yeah, abundantly clear for me was we should have started with Gyökeres in the 9, and we should have let him off the leash and just say run yourself into the ground for 60 minutes. Crowd and shroud the 2 centre halves. Don't let them breathe, just exactly the way you did against Burnley. Yeah, and give Martinelli, I think it was, and Saka the opportunities to get one-on-one with their centre with their fullbacks. And Marino did nothing in the first half, unfortunately, and it cost us because they ended up nicking a goal and we were chasing the game, and we'd already had 45 minutes in our legs. And one thing that I think he doesn't do is he goes hard when we go down in games and we find another gear, but he doesn't go from the start, go hard in games, because I think he's fearing going 1-0 down. And in recent weeks, we've actually gone 1-0 down and he's had to turn a screw. And maybe that is actually the reason why we're fatiguing harder, because we've got to lift the level so hard chasing the game. Well, actually, if you go 1 or 2-0 up in games, it's way easier to manage and actually keep your recovery rates in a much better window because you're controlling the game. So he should have controlled the game better from the start and not paid him so much respect, which has been a consistent problem. And he shouldn't have started Marino in the 9. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
John Cross, why do the main media and other fans of clubs hate the Arsenal so much when we are in a position at the top of the table and lost 1 game in 18? Do some of our flip-flop fans going to meltdown? We are the best team at the land at the moment, just don't understand it. Why it is crazy.
A inventive opinion on that would be probably because the fan media around Arsenal. Everybody, Robbie from AFTV is like a pantomime villain, isn't he? Everybody loves to hate all of that because we have such a big following in fan opinions and the biasness around the fan base. The fans that have supported Arteta are in like full flow in full Arteta FC because he's now 6 years into a project and everyone's saying he's a top 5 manager on the planet, he's this, he's that, and we haven't won any major honours. So I think everybody is doubling down. It would largely be determined by the media created by Arsenal creators or fans that then make rival media kind of swing so hard for us, like people who do combined 11s with teams that have won major honours and put 10 Arsenal players in it and we ain't won dick all. It's like it'll just be the most notional kind of ridiculous things. Like, you're absolutely right. We are still top of the league, and we are trying to pick holes in incredibly fine margins, and we are the only completely unbeaten side in the Champions League at this stage. However, momentum is massive in football, and our momentum as to where this all looks so easy in October and early November, now come early December, has changed quite drastically, and City can't stop winning, and we're finding it hard to win games. So I'm sure that tide will change again over the course of the next 6 to 7 months. But if we want to win the title, we have to we have to kickstart it. Do you know what I mean, Smugs? Like, we have to put the dynamite on it, not just wait for it to happen.
Yeah. Next question from Jonesy. What is the one goal that brought tears to your eyes?
What a question. One goal that brought tears to my eyes. I won't say that. Could be good and bad.
I'm intrigued now.
Yeah. I tell you where the first time I remembered properly crying, like with exuberance in as an Arsenal supporter, as a young boy, was when Ian Wright scored his 185th goal and became the new top goal scorer. He was one early stages. Bergkamp and Wright, I was going down my local rec and trying to recreate Ian Wright and Dennis Bergkamp goals, and Ian Wright was like a London boy, and the elation and kind of he's the first time I saw real elite activity live in front of myself when he became Arsenal's top goal scorer, and I think I just burst out in tears then. So it was kind of my first real memory of seeing it. I remember being a young boy crying when Patrick Vieira scored off the underside of the bar against Derby in the title-winning double season in injury time, and I think I cried because my uncle threw me 4 rows forward, and that as about a 10-year-old. But also just I was lateral in Highbury and just watched the ball leave his Nike Tiempo and just hit the underside of the bar, and it was a joke, and we drew that game. Sturridge scored a double.
2-2.
Yeah, 2-2. Mate, and then and obviously tears of sorrow. I guess the most tearful I've been at a game of football was at Parc de Paris when we lost the Champions League final. That was the most pain I've ever felt in a football game.
Yeah, horrible day. That was a horrible day. Next question from Jeff Danes. Do you think Odegaard slows down our game too much?
No, not really. I think a lot of what he does is quite coaching involved. I think that somebody who plays in the creative midfield position against the low block, they're pace setters. So there's a lot of stop-start movements and trying to watch people make runs and then create passing lines, and I can think of as many of situations where Odegaard's broken a passing line and he's created speed at a glimmer, a split second, as much as where he's kind of dribbling the ball with close control and he's kind of trying to see if there's a pass on. So no, I don't think so. I think the thing that really slows our game down is when we recycle the ball to the 2 centre halves so regularly, and when we could counter or try and play a slightly more one-dimensional and quicker through the lines. We don't take those opportunities. We recycle the ball back to Saliba and Gabriel. It comes out to Timber, back in, Rice drops in, pops the ball at centre half. And we do a lot of football in and around that area. And I find that slightly frustrating in regards to a pacing, because within that time frame, all you allow the opposition to do is just refine their shape. You've got to disrupt the opposition's shape in order to create opportunity. But no, I don't think it's solely Odegaard that does it.
Cool. Margaret Sheldon, do you think the training backroom staff are to blame for all the injuries?
Well, no, the backroom staff all report to one man. Mikel is the head coach and manager, so all of the training sessions are governed by him, and the players' minutes on the pitch, which is the most intensive part of their week, is completely managed by him. There's a wider story to that, Margaret, in regards to there's a wider story to that in regards to the physios, and Arsenal have just sacked their masseuse and their deep tissue guy, and it was just come out this week. As to the recovery time for players seems to always be elongated within Arsenal, and we don't get players back quickly, But we go on Mikel's two interviews a week as to whether or not he's giving correct information through to the media or not. But I think recovery time is a bit of an issue. I don't think we get players back that quickly at all. So no, he has to stand on that. That's because they're all his staff, his team, and they all report to him. He is the CEO of that football team, in essence. So, he dies. He lives on the sword and dies on the sword. So I don't think it's any one person's responsibility, but if someone has to take responsibility, it has to be Mikel.
Question from Catherine: if you had the chance to forget, if you had the chance to forget one game with the opportunity to watch again for the first time, what game would it be?
Forget one game with the opportunity to watch it again.
Oh, I think it's quite easy for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it's probably I think it would probably be when we won the title at Old Trafford. I'd love to just watch that live again, because of my age and kind of how nervous I was in the build up to watching that, and that title win was pretty big. They'd just not long won the treble. So that they were the best team in the world at the time, Man United. So that was pretty big. If not for sentimental value, Arsenal's last game, just because I found that. That was another tearjerker. To be honest, that was incredibly emotional. Mercy, Arsenal. Or the Spurs, or obviously Henry's big game at Spurs where he won the league at the Lane. So,
that's the one I was thinking.
Yeah, but there's a good question. Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah, so there you go. There's all our questions. What are you going for the winner for this week?
I think it's one of the first two questions I really liked. I'm just trying to remember them because they were all quite big. They were all quite long answers because they're all good questions. Maybe you might have to remind me of the two questions. I think one of them was from Andy, and then I can't remember the one directly after it.
Charles.
Yeah. What was Charles's question again?
No, that was just that was about an Unai Emery coach team, and obviously Andy.
Oh right, yeah. What was Andy's question? I think it was Andy. I really liked his question.
Yeah, his question was about decision making regarding players sometime.
Yeah. I mean, we highlighted how important it is today, and it's been a constant thing. So yeah, Andy would be our winner this week.
Congratulations, Andy! You will go into the draw for the obviously the prize that will be obviously getting decided in January in terms of obviously a ticket to the Emirates with Smuggsy Jim. So yeah, congratulations, mate. We are near the end of the show, and it's good that Andy was on the show as well to obviously get that news. So yeah,
amazing.
He's obviously said thank you as well. So obviously pleasure, Andrew. Just one last bit of news I've just seen obviously come through. Gabriel Jesus has been added into the Champions League squad. Apparently Max Downham's injured, so Jesus will be travelling out tomorrow for the Brugge game.
Oh right. So because he wasn't named. So have they omitted Dowman from the squad then? Because they get an opportunity, don't they, after all the group games, to resubmit a squad. So have they used the new special permissions rule to take
Yeah,
Dowman out of the squad for the
yeah.
next
So
3 games?
Arsenal actually put a tweet out going, "Welcome back, Gabby. Gabriel Jesus is now registered to take part in the UEFA Champions League action, so he will be in the squad for tomorrow night. So that will be interesting. I think we'll see him at some point tomorrow night."
Yeah, Max Dowman suffers injury and will be out for weeks, says Arteta. It's part of the journey. At some point, when you play in this level and in the position that he plays and the manner he plays, it was going to happen. It could have been worse. All right, there you go. Yeah, so
yeah, blow for obviously Max Dowman, but obviously, I guess good news for also Gabriel Jesus. Yeah, actually, to be honest, it'd be nice to see him come in that game tomorrow at some point. See, obviously, how he's doing. He scored obviously in both his friendly games, didn't he? Against Watford and Manchester United. So obviously, it's a totally different level of football whatsoever. But yeah, it'll be good to see him potentially get some minutes tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to see really Victor start the game and and try and get a goal. Because I think it'd be really good for him to as we say, get the mask on, and then get some minutes into to Ez's legs.
Absolutely. So yeah, looking forward to tomorrow night. Obviously, Arsenal are playing at 8:00 against Club Brugge, so that is away from home. Hopefully, we can get another 3 points on the board. You'd like to think as well, if we can get 3 points on the board tomorrow night, there's a pretty good chance that we could potentially at that point get that first place pretty much kind of confirmed, couldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, PSG didn't finish first and went on to win the league, so I'm not sure how important it is to finish first. But at the same token, I think it's more about momentum, really, mate. About trying to just kick on and just get us back into winning ways, so that we can we can just boot on, really, and try and find another route. Just an interesting one, mate. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through them now. Out of interest, yeah, I can't see Gyökeres in any of the training photos either. Oh, there he is. He's in there. He's in that one there. But yeah, there wasn't much training footage. There was a lot of training footage on Jesus there. So maybe that announcement's come late, and maybe he might get a surprise start tomorrow, mate. You never know.
Just got Ronnie in the chat going, Jesus to get a few games, sell him in January and get another forward in and reduce that 245k. Can you see that happening?
Possibly. I mean, his wages are big, and his availability is scarce. So he's an expensive asset to have for someone who's not always available, for sure. But my biggest issue with part of what we had under Edu's reign was that I think he just continually gave large wages to a lot of players who I think made themselves quite difficult to move on. Who really takes Jesus, mate, with his recent injury record in the last 2 years at £250,000 a week? Because I don't know other than City, Chelsea, and potentially Liverpool and Man United, who could afford his wages in the league. Maybe Newcastle, but they've just done their conkers on Voltemada, so I'm not sure he'd go there with the Saudi owners. No one in Germany would pay that sort of dough. Bayern Munich be the only one, but they don't need him. They've got Kane, Nicholas Jackson, and other options. So where does he go? What club do you think could give him the money? Like, let's just say he's open because he wants to play so badly to 100k a week pay rise. 150 bags, still a lot of money,
It's big money, isn't it? It is big money. I think personally himself, I think if he could, he'd want to stay around for the rest of the season. and then maybe leave at the end of the season. But depending on obviously conversations and
Mate, he's a football player. He's got another year and a half left on his contract. If you know this yourself and you're guaranteed £245,000 a week for 18 months, why would you go anywhere? You'd be like, make me leave. You know,
I'm just not so sure at the moment that actually in terms that he will potentially look to leave in January. I think the only way he leaves, if obviously Mikel says to him that he's not going to get the starts or he's not going to get the game time or he's not going to get in the squad, then that will obviously maybe potentially force his hand, especially with the World Cup. I'm not saying he's going to get in that World Cup squad by any stretch of the imagination, but you can imagine that actually his eyes must be on it still. But he's got to get himself back playing, isn't he? So there's obviously swings and roundabouts here, isn't there, in terms of what the conversations are between him and Mikel in terms of what is his role for the rest of the season. I still think personally we could get good use out of him for the rest of the season, but that squad is like, let's be honest, once you get everyone fit and you get everyone playing, that's a massive squad, isn't it? And you're going to have some big names potentially not getting on that bench, and he could be one of them.
I think the only play he has to play a regular part in this team will be from the left wing.
Absolutely. So I totally agree with you 100%. I totally agree. I think that if he was to get an opportunity, that would be the position. But I think at the moment he's going to have to come in and absolutely excel, because actually what Trossard's done this season has pretty much put his name on that. Do you know what I mean? At the moment, and yeah. But do you know what? I really like Jesus. There's something that says to me, I think him and Eze could really connect together as well. I think it could be a good match, them two. I think it's one of them, innit? See what happens. But I totally agree with you, Jim, in terms of if there's a role for him, it is on that left hand side.
Agreed. Yeah. All right, mate. Well, on to Bruges, hopefully, which is a bit of an opportunity to see some rotation. I actually just want to see some rotation because I want to see some of these other people play, mate. I'd like to see Kepa play. I'd like to see Norgard play. I'd like to see us rotate a bit in the front line. I really enjoy watching Madueke. I really enjoy watching him play. So, and I keep giving him opportunities, and he keeps finding something. I tell you, mate, just to finish, if he keeps putting in the halves that he has done, he's going to force Arteta's hand with Saka. You can't just not pick him because of a player. It's the same with Eze, with Odegaard. It's like he has got to give the manager difficult decisions now, and these other players are supposed to raise their levels and rise because they've got proper competition in places. It's I'd really like to see Madueke, and I'd really like to see. I'd actually just like to see Marino come back into the midfield and rest both Rice and Zubimendi, and see Gyökeres start at the 9, and hopefully they can get a chance or two to him, and we can get a goal back in his boots and get him back playing regularly again, because I think we were a better team with him in it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I think there's a good opportunity for other players tomorrow night to be able to come in and do a role and do a job. Do you know what I mean? So I am still quite optimistic tomorrow night that we can go out there and get a result. So yeah, fingers crossed. And then big game Saturday, Wolves under the lights, 8 p.m. Like you said, it needs to be a comprehensive one, really, doesn't it? And it's a game that can kind of get a bit of confidence back into quite a few players and maybe get some players on the score sheet yet again, like Gyökeres.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, momentum's massive now. Games come thick and fast. I know we've got a midweek rest next week, which is really, really, really useful. But then after that, from the 20th to the 2nd of Jan, I think we play 4 or 5 times. So really important to get 2 wins now, get our rest in, and go again.
Definitely. Well, Jim, thank you very much, mate. We have nearly been on here incredibly 2 hours tonight. So a lot was said, a lot was digested, a lot has been obviously released from our passionate bodies this evening.
Absolutely, mate. It was a cracker. I really enjoyed it.
No, me too, mate. And I just obviously want to thank absolutely everyone who's obviously joined the show tonight. We're near to over 500 people on X alone have joined us tonight, which I think is absolutely fantastic. We'll get an idea in terms of YouTube views, obviously tomorrow morning, which would be really positive. But yeah, I just want to obviously thank everyone that's been on, everyone that's raised questions, but also a massive congratulations for Andy, obviously, who won the Ask Jim question of the day. So he will go into the draw. That will be obviously decided at the start of the year, but obviously next week will be a new segment of Ask Jim. If you've got your question, please fire it out. We are going to be doing a bit of a change in terms of direction of the question. The question will go out during either prior, during, or just after the Wolves game. So, and we'll look to obviously pick the best questions from obviously what's been raised, and then bring them to the show for Jim to kind of answer. So yeah, look forward to that. But yeah, thanks, Jim.
All right, mate. You too. Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah, good night. God bless, and see you all next Tuesday, guys.